everyone, I hope all of you are doing good, and I am back with the second video of the video series on Class 8 Science, Crop Production and Management. In this video, we are going to learn about soil preparation. Now, even before a farmer starts his activities for crop production in the field, for example, ploughing or watering, it is necessary that he prepares the soil for this entire process. And that is what we are going to learn in this video in detail. So let's get started.
Soil too needs a preparation. Now, whenever the word preparation comes to your mind, one thing that must be striking you is preparation for exams. Now, if you don't prepare before taking up your exam, do you think that you'll be able to score well? Not really. So you need preparation before you appear for an exam. Now, who helps you in your preparation? So now you are very busy studying, but still you need somebody's help while you are preparing for exams. And who helps you to prepare for your exam? Either your parent, maybe your mother or father, or your teacher. So a teacher helps you in preparing for your exams. Now, when you are well prepared, you are definitely going to do well. If you are not well prepared, you are not going to do well. Now, in a very similar way, soil also needs preparation. And who helps in the preparation? A farmer helps in the preparation. So now, as I said, if you are well prepared, you are going to do well, and if you are not well prepared, then you are of course not going to do that well. So in a very similar way, soil also needs to be prepared. And who helps in soil preparation? Yes, a farmer. So the role of a teacher is performed by a farmer in this case, and your role is being performed by the field or the soil, whatever you call it. So this soil needs to be prepared before growing crops on that soil. So the soil, if the soil is prepared well, in that case, the crop productivity will also turn out to be well. If the soil is not prepared well, then the crop productivity will also not be well. So what do we do in terms of soil preparation? What exactly do we do with the soil? So that is what we are going to see next. So what are the activities which are done for preparing the soil? Ploughing, watering and leavening. These are the three important activities which prepares the soil good enough for cultivating crops on that soil. So we will talk about each of these now. So let us start with ploughing. So what do we mean by ploughing? It is loosening and turning of the soil. So what now we mean by loosening of soil? Now, if you would have ever observed that normally the soil becomes quite stiff and hard. I mean, not as hard as a metal, but otherwise the soil is quite hard. It is not very loose normally. Now, loosening that soil becomes very important at certain times, and that process of loosening of soil is called ploughing. Now, let me give a picture on the screen which will help you to understand what do we mean by loosening. If possible, just go out to your garden where maybe even if you have a small plant, a small tree planted on a pot, so just go there and look at the soil. So if the soil had not been loosened recently, you will see that the soil is quite leveled and it is little hard as well. It is not very soft and very fluffy. Now, if you take an object like this, so which has got a handle kind of a structure and a sharp end on the other side. Now, using this kind of a sharp object, if you start kind of digging the soil, what happens? You see that the soil tend to become loosened. So the soil actually becomes fluffy. So you feel that you dig it with that particular object and you see that the more spaces get created within the soil, and that is why the soil gets a fluffier appearance. So this is known as loosening of soil. That means we are actually trying to loosen out the soil particles. Now, earlier they were like extremely close to each other. Now we are just trying to make some distance between the soil particles. Now, how does this loosening of soil helps? I mean, why is it required as a part of soil preparation? So we will see that a little later. We will try to understand the importance of ploughing. But this is what is meant by ploughing. Now, it is not only done on big fields only for cultivation of crops. It is also done on a smaller scale. For example, if you have small plants in your garden, if you really want them to grow, if you really want them to give good flowers or good fruits, in that case, ploughing is important. So quite often, maybe over a period of a couple of weeks, you will have to plow the soil. You'll have to loosen the soil. This is also known as the process of ploughing, is also called as tiling. So this is just another name for ploughing. Now let us see what is the importance of ploughing. Why do we do ploughing? What is the need of loosening the soil? So the first thing is the soil becomes airy. Now when we actually plough it, what happens? More spaces gets created between the soil particles. So more availability of air takes place. The soil becomes airy. It becomes more well ventilated. Now, as long as the soil was not loosened, it was quite compact. So anything which is compact, so anything which is more compact, that means if the particles are very close to each other, that is called compact. So compact means less airy, whereas loose means more airy. So that means loose means the particles are quite away from each other. So let me give you an example. So let us suppose this is a room, and inside this room you have so many people present. So if this particular room has, let us say right now you have so many people, say around 30-40 people might be there inside the room. So in that case, do you think that the room will be a lot ventilated? Not really, because there are so many people, so it is like very compact and very congested. So it is less ventilated and it is less airy. Now, if you talk about the same room, but with people spread away from each other. So now it is not that the people are, standing one over another. So now if you see the same room, but people are like standing quite away from each other. So in this case, it is less compact, and since it is less compact, so it is more airy. So that means when the particles are a little away from each other, then they become more airy. So when the same number of particles are spread over a larger distance, then they tend to become less compact and it becomes more airy. So the same thing happens with the case of soil. So in soil, when you actually dig it with a sharp object, what happens is the soil particles, they tend to get loosened away from each other. Now when they loosen away from each other, they become more ventilated, they become more airy. So that is one advantage, that the soil becomes airy. Now what happens, how is it beneficial if the soil becomes more airy? Now if the soil becomes more airy, there are a lot of advantages. So one is more oxygen is available, so more microorganisms can grow. That is one advantage. Other advantage is that now when it is more airy, there are more open spaces available. So here you can hardly see any open space between the people because they are like standing head to head. But here if you see, there are a lot of open spaces in between the people. So through these open spaces, the roots will be able to penetrate deep inside the soil. So, and if the roots are able to penetrate deep inside, it is better for the plant because the plant will be able to get better nutrients from the soil through the roots. So there are quite a few advantages of airy soil. So this is one thing. Next importance is deep penetration of roots into the soil. As I mentioned just now, when the soil is loosened, you have more empty spaces. So here you can see there is so much of empty space in this case. So the roots can very well, the thin root hairs, they can very well penetrate deep inside the soil, and the loosened soil allow roots to get inside. Now more air, therefore the roots can also breathe better. So it is overall better for the plant. Another importance is it promotes growth of earthworms. Now as I said, being more airy, there is more presence of oxygen, so it promotes the growth of a lot of microorganisms as well. So organisms like earthworms, so they are called farmers' friends. Why? Because it acts as a natural fertilizer. Earthworm acts as a natural fertilizer because the castings from an earthworm, they increase the fertility of the soil. So because their castings contain nutrients which are useful for the growth and development of the plants. So that ways also it is beneficial, that it promotes the growth of earthworms, which in turn improves the soil fertility. Its castings contain nutrients useful for the plants. So that ways also it is beneficial for the plant growth. It burrows in the soil, allow air, water and nutrients to reach deep within the soil. Now these earthworms, they not only live on the surface of the soil, but they also burrow deep inside the soil. So that means the entire quality and texture of the soil will improve due to the presence of more earthworms, and ploughing can ensure that the growth of earthworms increase. Promotes growth of microbes, again the same logic behind that, because the soil is airy, so it will allow a lot of microorganisms to grow. So this in turn will also help to improve soil fertility, and it will also help in decomposition. As we know that these microorganisms like bacteria or fungi, they help in decomposing dead organisms and plants, and that's how they release nutrients into the soil. So now these microorganisms, if you talk about mostly, so when you talk about decomposition, we talk about microorganisms like bacteria and fungi, and they are called decomposers. So what do? They break down the dead organisms, whether dead plants or animals, and convert the organic matter present in them, all the organic substance, into inorganic minerals which act as plant nutrients. So basically, if had these decomposers not been there, in that case all the dead bodies of plants and animals would have got accumulated on earth. So but instead of that, they are getting converted into something which is useful for the growth of plant, and that is amazing. So that way also microbes are something which are beneficial in this case. So a presence of lot of microbes in the soil is going to benefit in the growth of plants, and this process of ploughing helps in growing more and more microbes. Increases soil fertility. So we already, from the above 4 points, we can see that the fertility of the soil will increase or improve. Well, so this increase in fertility can happen by many different ways. For example, the loosened soil might have more air, so more microbes. Now, when more microbes are present, then more humus will be formed. As a result, soil fertility will increase. Again, it can also happen that the soil gets loosened, so there are more organisms like earthworms, so they add nutrients which are beneficial for the plant into the soil. That way also the soil fertility increases. Nutrient-rich soil is made available to the plants. Now, if you look inside the soil, you will see that there are many different layers of soil which are present. So there are various layers. So this is called as soil horizon. Now, the plants are able to reach only up to the top layers of the soil horizon, and therefore the plants are able to utilize the organic matter and minerals which are present only on the top layers. But the plants can utilize only a few centimeters of the depth, because plants are not able to go really deep inside. So as long as up to the depth till which the plants are able to reach, it is just a few centimeters. But what we can do is, when we plow, what we do is, with that sharp object we tend to just mix the layer of soil. So as a result, sometimes what happens is the upper layers get replaced by the lower layers. So basically you are mixing the lower and the upper layers. So sometimes the lower layers also come on the upper side, and as a result the plant can utilize the nutrients present in that layer. So that way it helps the mineral rich layers to be brought up. So the mineral rich layers are brought up, and this is how plants can utilize more and more minerals, and that's how it can have better growth and development. So these are some of the reasons which tell us that how ploughing is very important. So without ploughing we cannot have a good crop productivity, because as long as the soil is not good enough, soil doesn't have that quality, in that case your cultivation is not going to be good. Now the next activity for soil preparation is watering. The name itself is quite simple. It is nothing but giving water to the field to make the dry soil wet before ploughing. Now please note that the process of watering takes place before ploughing, and it is not necessary that every time before ploughing the field needs to be watered, but it is basically done to make the process of ploughing little easier. That's because if the soil is very much dry, in that case ploughing might become a little difficult, because like so far what I have told you is the example of some sharp object with which you can dig, and that is ploughing. But there are other devices as well which helps in the process of ploughing. For example, in fact, a tractor also helps in ploughing the field, so that is an automated process. But whether it is done manually or it is done through tractor, if the soil is dry, in that case ploughing is not impossible, but it is difficult. So to make the process easier, what we do is, before ploughing we water the field so that the soil becomes little wet, so ploughing becomes easier. So if you ask me, can't we plough a dry field? Yes, we can plough a dry field. It is possible, but it is difficult, because you can yourself imagine that if the soil is very hard, at the same time it is completely dry, in that case it is very difficult to dig inside and then loosen the soil. So that way, weighting the soil helps in ploughing. So please remember that watering, if it takes place, it happens before ploughing. So with tractor also we do ploughing because it makes the entire process easier. So we will talk about the equipments which we utilize for soil preparation. The next process is puddling. What is puddling? So it is breaking down big clumps of soil into smaller pieces after ploughing. Now once you have ploughed the field, that means once you have loosened the soil, you will observe that there are certain pieces of soil which are like quite bigger pieces of soil. So they have formed some ball kind of a structure. Some of them are very big pieces, whereas some are quite small. Now the bigger pieces also, we break them into a dust kind of a thing. So we do not want big clumps of soil. So we break them into smaller pieces, and this process is called puddling. So how this helps? Why do we break the bigger pieces of soil into smaller pieces? Because some of the advantages. So one advantage of doing this is it reduces the percolation loss. Now the question is, what is percolation loss? So percolation is nothing but the process of a liquid passing through a filter. Now if you look at the soil particles, so the soil particles are porous, so they allow water to pass through it. Now if one crumb of soil is that big, what will happen? Water it will get stuck within it, right? So the process of percolation, that is liquid passing through a filter, so that process increases if the soil pieces are bigger. So if we reduce the soil pieces into smaller pieces, what will happen is this percolation loss will be reduced. That means not a lot of liquid will just keep on passing through the soil. So that will not happen. So that is one advantage. The next advantage is that it will reduce permeability. So what is permeability? I hope you would have heard of permeability before. If not, just know it now. It is the rate of flow of water through a porous material. As I said, soil particles are porous in nature. So water tends to flow through them quite fast. Water tends to pass through them. So for bigger clumps of soil, again, like if you talk about bigger clumps, it is going to be something like this. Like say if your soil is made up of some 3-4 bigger clumps of soil, what will happen? Water will quickly pass through these 3 pieces. But instead of this, if you have a lot of small soil particles, it will take more time for water to pass through these. So therefore the permeability will also reduce. Now if the permeability and percolation loss reduces, what will happen? More and more water could be retained on the soil, and that water can be utilized by the plant for its growth. So the more permeable the soil is, the greater is the seepage. Now we do not want seepage to happen, that water should seep through the soil and it should go elsewhere. So that is not desirable. So we do not want the permeability to be more, and permeability is something which is directly proportional to the particle size. So if the particle size is more, permeability is more. If permeability is more, seepage is more. So these are the things which are directly proportional to each other. But particle size is more, that would mean that permeability will be more. And if permeability is more, that means seepage will be more. Now, do we want seepage of water through the soil? No, we do not want that. So in that case, we will have to reduce the particle size, and that is why we break down bigger pieces of bigger clumps of soil into smaller pieces, so that these two advantages can take place. So now the last process, that is leveling. What is leveling? Leveling means to level something, to bring something into a consistent shape and to a consistent level. So flattening of the soil after puddling. Now, initially what we did, we loosened the soil. So the upper surface of the soil was all haphazard. After that, what we did, puddling, that is we broke down bigger pieces into smaller pieces. Now what we want to do is the upper surface should be smooth and flat. So this is known as leveling, and it is done at the end of soil preparation. So leveling is generally done with a leveler. Now see, all these processes can be done manually as well. For example, if you are doing it in your garden, maybe you can just do it with your hand, or maybe you can do it with some instrument, with some device which has a flat surface, and you can just level the soil. But when you are doing it on a field which has thousands of plants, doing it manually is going to be a tedious job, and it will also consume a lot of time. So there we make use of equipment. So we have an equipment called leveler. So here in the picture you can see how a leveler looks like. So here you see this surface is quite smooth. So what happens is, when you push it in this direction, this keeps on rotating and the smooth surface will move on the soil. So all the rough surface of the soil will get smoothened and flattened. So that is how leveling takes. Now let us quickly look at the agricultural tools which are used for soil preparation. So what are the various activities which we do during soil preparation? Ploughing, watering, puddling and leveling. So there are a couple of tools which are being used for these processes. Now some of these tools are manually used by the farmers. Some of the tools are a part of automated machines. Like tractors are extremely useful for ploughing purposes. So let us quickly have a look at the various tools. Yes, I had seen such tools in the village field, says our little friend, because he has been to the village very recently and he has also seen green fields where he has seen these kind of tools. And I'm sure if you ever visit a village, you will also get to see these kind of tools. So let us quickly see what are these tools and how do they help the farmers. Some of the important tools are plough, hoe and cultivator. So these are the three tools which we will be primarily talking about. So which one of these is a plough? So this is a plough. So this will help in the process of ploughing, which is a hoe. So this is a hoe, this one or this one. Both of these are types of hoe. Cultivator, this one is a cultivator. So let us quickly see what are each of these and how exactly do they help. So let us first talk about plough. So the name itself says that it helps in ploughing. So it is a tool which is used for ploughing because it just cannot be done with your hand. So you need something which can actually help you to dig the soil. So it is generally made up of iron or wood. Now a plough primarily has three important parts, and they are ploughshare, plough shaft and beam. So let us see which is ploughshare, which is plough shaft and which is a beam. So here if you see, so let us see the three parts of this plough. So ploughshare is this part which is present on one extreme end, and it is an iron strip which is kind of triangular in shape. So this one is the ploughshare, which is the plough shaft. This long log of wood, it is generally made up of wood, but sometimes it is made up of iron also. So, but mostly it is wood. So this is the plough shaft. So this one is the plough shaft. And which is the beam? So beam is that part which is placed on the animal's neck, because how is this plough carried? It is carried by a pair of animals. Two animals, they carry the plough on they carry it on their neck, and then they pull the plough through the field. And when they pull it, this sharp portion of the ploughshare, it does the actual ploughing on the field, and the man holds the handle and operates it. So this handle side is held by the man. So let us quickly look at a picture. So this is how it works. So you see this part is the handle, this part is the ploughshare. So here you see this is ploughshare and this one is the plough shaft. And where is the beam? This portion is the beam. So this part is the beam. So the beam is somewhere here. So somewhere here you have a plain wooden log which is placed on the neck of the animals. Now various animals are used for ploughing purpose. For example, ox is used, cow is used. So these are some of the animals which are used for, in fact horses are also used. So it is a tedious job for animals, but that is how it has been traditionally carried out. So this is the plough. So now this end, that is the plowshare, it being very sharp and stripped. So what happens when it passes through the field, or it passes through the soil on the field, it tends to dig the field, and that's how it loosens the soil. So that is how ploughing happens through the plough. The next the next equipment is the hoe. So this is how a simple hoe looks like. So it is a tool which is again used for loosening the soil. So what exactly happens with hoe? So it is also made up of wood or iron, and if you look at its structure, it has a strong iron plate attached to a long rod. So here you can see this is a rod, and this is an iron plate which is attached to the long rod, and this iron plate basically acts as a blade, and that is how it helps in loosening the soil, because this case also it has to dig into the soil. That's how it can loosen the soil. So this is the structure of a simple hoe. However, some hoe have a structure like this as well. They have a better handle, a better iron plate. They also have a beam, because sometimes hoe also, now this type of hoe is generally used manually by farmers, but this type of hoe again is carried by animals. So if you want to use this hoe being carried by animals, in that case you have this beam. So here again you have beam. This is the portion which is placed on the neck of animals, and here you have a handle which is operated by the farmer. So the farmer can hold it here, and you have the sharp metal plate, a sharp iron plate here. So this is the iron plate here, and this one is a long rod. So this part is the long rod. Here you have the iron plate, here you have a handle, and here you have a beam. So here the structure of this type of hoe is very similar to that of a plough. So with minor differences in the structure of the metal plate, like here you have an iron plate like this which is extremely sharp, but there you have that triangular shaped plowshare. So a little bit of differences in the structure here and there, but this is also a similar kind of tool. So the next tool is a cultivator. So you would have seen this type of a cultivator even in your garden. So even the gardeners of small gardens also, they use these kind of cultivators. So it is also a tool which is used for ploughing. Now often this tool, so one option is it can be used manually by a farmer. So you just hold it here, and then with these sharp ends you can dig the soil and you can plough and loosen the soil. But if you want to do it with a machine, with the help of a machine, so that you don't have to do it manually on the soil, because see, doing it manually is possible in a small garden, but when you are talking about a big field where thousands of crops need to be cultivated, if you start doing it manually, first of all it will need a lot of effort, so a lot of human labor is involved. Secondly, it will consume more time. So that is why there are tractor driven cultivators also. So here you see this is a huge tractor, and towards the end of the tractor you have the cultivator. So it's similar kind of a structure is fitted towards the end, towards one end of the tractor. So in this case what happens, as the vehicle moves, as the tractor moves through the field, this cultivators by itself, they keep on ploughing the land. So that means it is very useful, and it has a lot of benefits over the manual cultivator, because it saves time, and it is a fast process, and it also reduces human labor. So some of the advantages of tractor driven cultivators. So tractor-driven cultivators will have a couple of benefits, like it will save time, and secondly, it will also save human effort. So you really don't need to put in so much of effort to cultivate the land. So these are the two major benefits of tractor-driven cultivator. So now that we have spoken about all the three equipments which are used for ploughing, that is plough, hoe and cultivator. So you can see that all of them have the basic similarities there, because they are going to serve the basic purpose. But if you look at the differences, you can see that all three of them are quite different in their structures. If you talk about a plough can be used for ploughing as well as for mixing purposes. Whereas if you talk about a hoe is mostly used for loosening the soil. And again, structure wise, both of them have different type of structures. Like in case of hoe, we have the iron plate. In case of plough, we have the triangular iron strip. And in case of cultivators, we have these teeth like structures in the front. So that ways, all of them will have different structures, but the basic function that they perform is the same. So now we are going to talk about the next practice, that is sowing. So now the soil is prepared. So that means now it is something like now you have already prepared for your exams. So now you are all set to appear for the exam. So that is the situation now. That is, the field is all prepared. So the soil preparation is done. Soil is all ready for the plants to get cultivated. So the next step is going to be sowing. That means now you have to put seeds on the soil, because from seeds only plants will grow, right? So this step is called sowing. So what is sowing? Sowing is the scattering of seeds on the earth after soil is prepared for cultivation. Now once the soil is prepared, then seeds need to be scattered, because from these seeds only plants will grow. So it is something like you have prepared for your exam. So you are all prepared. So you have reached the examination center, you are sitting in the examination hall. But question paper needs to be given to you, only then you will be able to answer. So your preparation is not going to help you pass in exams if you are not given the question paper and the answer sheet. So in a very similar way, for plants to grow, we need to provide the seeds. So the sowing is that step where seeds are being scattered on the soil. So it is the most important part, because the seeds actually decide what kind of plants will come up. And if good quality plants come up, then the productivity will be more. If bad quality plants come up, then the productivity will be bad. So plants can't grow without the seeds. So selection of seeds and scattering of seeds, both are equally important, and they both form the part of sowing. So in sowing, what we will talk about is, you would have seen seeds, right? The small seeds are available. You can also purchase them from the market. So when you have the soil ready, you can just put them on the soil. And then gradually over a period of time, when you water them properly, germination of seed takes place and a small plant tends to grow from that seed. So that is, this process of scattering seeds after soil preparation is called sowing. So now, some of the points which you need to remember while sowing, that means while scattering seeds, there are some points which are very, very important to be remembered. First is, good quality seeds should be used for sowing, because as I said, the type of seeds which you provide is the type of plant that you will get out of it. So if you provide bad quality seeds, so you will get bad plants later. If you give good quality seeds, then you will get good quality plants later. So in a very similar way, for example, the way you perform in your exam, if you write well in your exam, you will get good marks. If you do not write well, you are not going to get good marks. That's how it is. So the way the input is, the way the output will be. Now the question is, what do we mean by good quality seeds? Which seeds are defined as good quality seeds? So, and moreover, how do we know that which seed is of good quality and which seed is of bad quality? So, these two questions are there in our little friend's mind. So, let us first try to understand what kind of seeds are said to be good quality seeds. Okay, so some of the qualities which define a good quality seeds are, it should be clean, it should be healthy, it should have high yield capacity. So if the seeds satisfy the following conditions, we can categorize them as good quality seeds. They should be clean, they should not have dirt or insects or pests, they should be healthy, they should not be diseased, and they should have high yield capacity. That means they should be capable of giving good crop yield. Now the question is, how do I know if the seed is going to give good crop yield? It is just a small seed. Just by looking at the seed, how do I know how is it going to be? Now try to compare it with some real life example. For example, when do we say, how do we define a good quality student? If I tell you, you have to define a good quality student. So how do you define them? A student who is neat and clean, comes well dressed, neat and clean uniform, clean shoes, A student who is healthy, he doesn't fall ill very often and he is not weak, so he is strong and stout and healthy. And performance wise also he is good, he performs well in the class. Behavior wise also he is good. So that is how we define a good quality student. So in a very similar way we define a good quality seed. But the question is, how do we know which is a good quality seed and which is a bad quality seed? For example, in the class, how do you know that which student has better performance and which student has bad performance? By looking at their scores, correct? That whoever scores well is performing better and whoever scores less is not performing good. So that's how we define who is better and who is not. So in a very similar way, we can determine which seed is of good quality and which seed is of bad quality. So for that purpose, what do? You take a bowl, put some water into the bowl. Now if you want, you can try it out at your home. So all you need is a handful of seeds. So from where do you get the seeds? Maybe you can find the rice seeds or the wheat seeds or any seeds of any plant. So just take a handful of seeds. You take a ball and put some water into the ball, and now you put some seeds into the same ball. So right now, for example, I have taken, let us suppose, the wheat seeds. So you just take the seeds and you put it into the bowl which contains water. After a couple of seconds, what will you see? Some seeds start to float on the water, whereas some other seeds are settled at the bottom. In fact, you will see that most of the seeds are settled at the bottom, while some of the seeds, being lighter, they are floating on the surface of water. Now, why do objects float? Now, objects float only when they are very light. So when they are light, they float. When they are heavy, they settle down. It is something like a fat person cannot run that much. So a fat person will just sit and relax. Similarly here also, the heavier seeds will just sit and relax at the bottom, whereas the lighter seeds, they'll tend to jump. They'll come to the surface. So now from this, how do you distinguish? So these seeds which are lighter. Why are they lighter? Because the seeds are basically hollow. So there is nothing inside the seed. So that means these hollow lighter seeds are nothing but the damaged seeds. So these are not the seeds of good quality. Whereas the seeds which settle at the bottom, they are good quality seeds. So this is how you can determine whether the seeds are of good quality or not. So now if you use the damaged seeds, what will happen? Now the seeds doesn't really have anything inside. So normally any seed should contain the seed leaves inside. It should have the radicle, the plumule. Now I am not going to talk about the seed structure now. You will study that in your higher classes. So basically all the structures of the seed should be present in a proper way inside it. Only then it will be able to give rise to a proper plant. But in case of a damaged seed, inside the seed nothing is there. That is why it is hollow. That is why it is lighter and it floats on water. So using these damaged seeds will not give us good plants. So this is how we can distinguish between healthy seeds and damaged seeds. So we need to ensure that for sowing only good quality seeds are being used, because only then we will be able to get good quality plants and therefore a better crop yield. So now the question is, how is sowing done? How exactly do we do it? So are we going to do it manually? So let us see. Is sowing done manually? Now manually is just one option, but just imagine if I ask you to scatter the seeds over a huge field. So it is going to be extremely tiring for you. You just keep on bending and scattering seeds throughout the field. It will make you tired. It will take so much of time. That is the reason that most of the processes have been automated, or some equipments or some machines have been put into place to reduce human labor as well as to reduce the time which is used for doing that particular activity. So in a similar way, for sowing also we have an equipment called seed drill. So seed drill is an equipment for sowing seeds using tractors. So what do we do? Tractors are nothing but they are big vehicles. So they have got big a big vehicle where we can attach different instruments for different purposes. For example, for plowing, or we can attach the cultivator to the tractor. So the tractor just helps the cultivator to move. So you don't need the animals to move the cultivator. In a very similar way, for seed drill also, that seed drill part can be attached to a tractor. So now the tractor moves throughout the field. So the seed drill also moves throughout the field. So the seed gets scattered throughout the field. So that's how seed drill works. Now, what are the advantages of using seed drill? Other than saving time and saving human labor, there are many more advantages associated with seed drill. So let us see. So this is how a seed drill looks like. So here you see these are tube-like structure, and here you have openings through which the seeds come out. Now as this vehicle moves, so the seed gets scattered in this fashion. So it keeps on scattering the seeds like this. So as it moves throughout the field, the seeds automatically get scattered throughout. Now some of the advantages of using seed drill are: sow seeds at uniform distances. So if you look at this picture, you see that these tubes are arranged at uniform distance, at fixed distance. So whatever is this distance is the same as this distance. So at equal distances, the seeds will be sown. For example, this will put seeds like this will put seeds like this will put it like this. So it will happen in a very systematic and organized manner. But if we do it manually, we will not be able to maintain proper distances. So here the seeds will be sown at uniform distance. So that is one good thing, because if we start sowing the seeds very closely, now if these two seeds are extremely close to each other, what will happen? Later when the plant grows, the two plants will be like too close to each other. So they will start fighting with each other for nutrients and water from the soil, because they are too close. They will not get enough space to grow properly. So therefore it is very important that the seeds are sown at proper distances from each other, so that each plant gets enough light, water, nutrients, as well as enough space to grow. So we can decide how much space should be given between two plants, and that is how we can decide at what distance the seeds need to be sown. So a specific distance can be maintained uniformly throughout the field. So here you can see, let us suppose if these are the three plants which are grown one after another. So this has come up here because the seeds were sown here. Again seeds were sown here. Again seeds were sown here. That is why the plant have come up here. Now if they have considerable distance between each other, they will not interfere with each other's growth. But if they are too close to each other, what will happen? There is not enough space between them for both of them to spread. So that can become a major drawback. So that is why seed drill is used, so that enough distance and uniform distance is maintained between the seeds. Second is protect seeds from birds. Now what happens in this case, when it is done with machines, what happens is the seed is thrown on the soil. At the same time, the seed gets covered with some part of the soil. So as a result, the birds cannot eat the seeds. But if you do it manually, it is not possible to cover each and every seed separately with soil. So in that case, many a times the seeds get eaten away by birds. Third, of course, it saves time, because in this case, even if your field is very huge, but the tractor being a machine can very easily make turns throughout the field, and that's how you can quickly sow the seeds. Saves human labor. All you need to do is just drive the tractor, that's all. You don't really need to do much here. But if you've been doing this manually, in that case you will have to bend and put the seeds throughout the field. You have to ensure that they are being sown at proper distances. So that will involve a lot of labor, and it will make the person tired. So that means there are a couple of advantages of using seed drill, and that is why seed drill is being used.
I hope you found the video useful. In the next video, we are going to learn about improvement in crop yield as well as manures. So stay tuned.